is a global obsession that follows Benedict Cumberbatch. Fiercely popular and charmingly British,
I didn't even have to pay him that much.
the chiseled-cheek superstar is seemingly unstoppable. For most of the self-proclaimed Ben addicts, his claim to fame started here.
You're a bloody psychopath. High-functioning sociopath. With your number.
His icy and quick-witted portrayal of Sherlock Holmes for the BBC adaptation of the series.
Is that it?
A role that catapulted him into international fame and a household name. Since then, it's been a career sprint for the British heartthrob, with a knack for playing the tortured genius. Starring as Khan, the mysterious villain in Star Trek Into Darkness.
I will walk over your cold corpses to recover my people.
As WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange in The Fifth Estate.
We're winning an information war.
And of course, cracking into the world of Alan Turing in The Imitation Game.
Hi, Clara. Turns out that's the only German you need to know to break Enigma.
A role that earned Cumberbatch an Oscar nomination and huge box office success. But it wasn't always life in the limelight for the movie star. International fame struck over a decade after his breakthrough role as Stephen Hawking in a 2004 miniseries. Now, on screen and off, the Cumberbatch craze is in full swing, with a tendency for his every move to break the internet. This month on Talk Asia, we sit down with Benedict Cumberbatch in Shanghai as he opens up about his sex appeal and the British invasion of Hollywood. Well, Benedict Cumberbatch, welcome to Talk Asia.
Thank you.
Your fellow British actor Colin Firth described you in Time magazine as the alarmingly talented English actor who must be stopped. Quite a compliment coming from him.
I didn't even have to pay him that much. He's on hard times at the moment, Colin, so it costs very little to get him to say such a ridiculously lovely thing. No, Colin's been an extraordinary friend. I was lucky enough rather, to work with him on Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, and we got on incredibly well. I mean, he's fearsomely talented, utterly brilliant, devastatingly charming, really smart, and very, very, very good company.
But you too are a force to be reckoned with. Do you feel unstoppable at the moment?
I don't know about that. I don't, listen, it always puts a little sort of chill of fear in me when people are saying you're having a moment, because to me, the unstoppable nature of what actors do is you do it until you're in your 80s. My mum she'll hate me for saying this, but she's turning 80 this year. And God bless her, she's still working. And that's kind of what most of us want, is longevity.
Because you have been around for a while. You're not new to this.
No.
You're new to showbiz.
Which is why I still giggle when people sort of fall about if they meet me in the street or something. Well, you better come. I find it funny. I've had the same face for however long I've been doing it, over 10 years now, and it's only in recent years that face has sort of garnered more attention or obsession. And I genuinely still find it quite amusing. So, yeah, long may that continue, because it keeps you a bit grounded.
But I guess the level of stardom, that is something new. Do you feel that has changed you?
Yeah, and it's a very high-class problem to have, so I'm not going to go into the usual kind of negatives of it, but you can imagine it's just privacy becomes a commodity that's that much more valuable and shrinking as well. The good side of it is that you get to have a lot more control over your own means of production. You get to choose the kind of projects you want to do as an actor, which, it's such a privileged position to be in. You start off desperately keen for any kind of work and just knocking on doors and trying to get noticed, and then you do, and then you try to capitalize on your opportunities that you're given, and that's kind of what's brought me to where I am. And I acknowledge I've been very, very lucky, but you have to work really hard to get there. So it's great when you get to the stage when you can start to control a bit more, I suppose.
Well, it's your role as Sherlock Holmes in the BBC's Sherlock.
I love the way you say that, Sherlock Holmes. Strongest accent.
A household name, your EP, Mark Gatiss, said that you went from being a respected actor to a star.
Yeah, hopefully I haven't left being a respected actor behind by playing Sherlock, but I know what he means. He means that, I was just going from great jobs, but they weren't in the limelight, they weren't in the public eye quite to the extent that I knew that character, no matter what we did with it was going to garner that kind of attention. You know, it's been extraordinary. I've asked some of the people here because I'm fascinated to know why it has such a kind of cultural hold globally. You know, in the UK, you get it, you kind of grow up on Holmes, but it's the power of the original stories and how true, despite it being a modernisation, we've managed to hold to those original stories. So, you know, one of the things that thrilled me was that book sales went up in the UK after the first season showed. You know, kids were buying the books and reading the books again, and that's a fantastic thing for everyone involved, really.
Because there have been several adaptations over the years.
You know, they have lots. I mean, you know, I think it's. Look, I mean, television has a sort of spread now unlike any other time, and I think if you strike gold like we did with the incredible source material mastered by two incredible writers in the shape of Stephen Moffat and Mark Gatiss into something truly modern but respectful of the original, you've got a recipe for success. And I was very wary, having done roles which were challenging and terrific and, you know, kept a good career going. I was very wary about stepping into the limelight in a populist role like Sherlock Holmes, but the minute I saw who was involved and read the script and the quality of it, I thought, I've got to do this. I've got to.
But you've also made Sherlock Holmes sexy, as your legion of female fans, including my little sister, would,
right. Thank you very much.
So really, you too are to
maybe
take credit for
or my
happened to
parents.
this,
I mean, maybe it's just genetic. I don't know. I don't know. I think I always get slightly troubled when people see him as sexy. I can see it. I mean, he's distant and cold and very, very smart and looks the way he looks, I suppose. But yeah, I think he'd be quite terrifying company in reality. I don't think he'd be all that sexy. But anyway, no.
But where does that sex appeal come from? Because that is what people talk about. Sherlock Holmes being sexy.
Yeah, I feel monstrously uncomfortable talking about this because I can only really talk about him as a character, and I think anything else is just for fans to answer, to be honest. For your little sister should be answering this question, not me.
Okay.
But in brief, you know, he's a brilliant man who's removed from the world and practices his art in a way that's utterly uncompromising, and he doesn't suffer fools gladly, and I think we all get a vicarious thrill out of that. And you know, he's a master at pretty much everything he attempts. But like I say, I mean, I think there's an awful lot about him that's very dangerous, very distant. And I go, it's like Bond. You know, everyone wants to sort of, you know, put an arm around him, but you wouldn't get that near either, I think, in reality. So it always puzzles me slightly.
Well, it's not just the character. You too have been voted as one of the sexiest men
Which
alive.
again,
How does that sit with you?
Truly strange. I could use stronger language than that if we weren't being recorded. But you know, I've been around for a while now before this face, which I've woken up with for 38 years now, a little bit longer. And I've just kind of go, well, that's the way I look. And you know, the first sort of few years of my career, nobody sort of batted an eyelid, didn't cause any stirs, wasn't on the front page of any magazines or in polls or on calendars or on coffee mugs or God knows what else. And now it's just, yeah, it's gone a bit berserk. It's fun and it's funny and it's amusing. And if you take it seriously, I think you're doomed, really, because this ain't going to last forever, and hopefully my acting career will last for at least as long as I last.
But it is one of those titles.
It's something and nothing. It's something and nothing, do you know what I mean? And I think if the compliment I was going to say to be taken from all of the silliness of it is, I guess it's a reflection on the attention that the work that this face has done, hopefully, rather than just the way I look.
You talk about your fan base here, a bunch of girls who call themselves the Cumber Bitches.
Called Cumber Collective, Cumber People, Cumber anything.
Cumber anything.
Other than that word.
粉丝很多，他在中国很多人都叫他卷福，因为他卷发，还有演了福尔摩斯。网上也会 follow 他一些Instagram 啊，或者是 Facebook 啊，也会关注他。其实第一次看他觉得不帅，但是因为他演的角色很帅，所以就慢慢的就开始非常喜欢他。
对，福尔摩斯还是我挺喜欢的一部，
挺火的。
Well, you're in Shanghai. Is this the first time?
It is. It's my first time in China, let alone in Shanghai. And it's great to be here, not least because of the huge fan base here for Sherlock, but just to actually sort of just experience the culture a little bit. And it's bizarre because you come here as a foreigner looking for something that is foreign to you, that's alien, and there's so much that's sort of strangely familiar because this is such a fastly evolving metropolis. The high rises, the skyline is an echo of other skylines around the world, and it's interesting, but you want to dig a little bit below the surface and try and get to what may remain of the authentic old China as well in Shanghai, and that's increasingly shrinking, I've discovered. I've only been here for a few days, but it's hard to get there.
You talk about your fan base here in China. Asia, really across the world, this legion of fans. I think there were a bunch of girls who call themselves the Cumber Bitches. I think you corrected them and called them the Cumber Babes.
Tried to call Cumber Collective, Cumber People, Cumber anything.
Cumber anything.
Other than that word. But yeah, it's that was them having some fun. And look, it is all fun and games. And they've been very supportive of all of my work actually, and that's the great thing. It's a fun ride to be on for them, and I guess for me as well. It's a strange thing. It's an interesting thing. You don't really, start out doing what I do to think, right, well, what's the fan base going to involve? But by and large, they're very intelligent and engaging and supportive bunch of people. So it's been fun to go on the ride with them.
Well, you are here to host the Laureus Sports Awards. It's the second time you've done this. Do you enjoy being involved in an event like this?
I mean, yes. I'll be saying no before I go on stage. First link is absolutely terrifying, as I'm sure you know from many live events. But yeah, it's fearsome. I mean, I'm speaking in front of a huge TV audience, millions of people. I mean, moon landing size audiences. I mean, it's quite scary. And then you just go, no, actually, it's just about doing a good job and having some fun with it.
Tell me about your involvement with the Sports for Good Foundation.
So Laureus is the sort of forerunner of that. That's what it is. It funds the Sports for Good Foundation. So this award ceremony is fantastic. It brings in sportsmen and women from all around the world, from all eras of sport, now and in the past, and celebrates 5 wins for 5 categories in the award show. But really, it's all about bringing attention to a charitable arm called Sports for Good Foundation, which is extraordinary, and it's got over 150 projects in over 30 countries. It's helped millions of children from deprived backgrounds, and it's this extraordinary thing which Nelson Mandela said in the inaugural Laureus Awards ceremony in 2000, that sport has the power to change the world, and it really does.
You've been involved in numerous charities over the years. After you played Stephen Hawking, you got involved in
Motor Neuron Disease Foundation. Yes, I did indeed. Yeah.
You obviously did the Ice Bucket Challenge.
Yeah.
So this is obviously something that's important to you. You have a social conscience, yeah?
I think so. I think, of course, like anyone does. I mean, and I'm in a lucky position where I've got a voice and can draw attention to causes. So it's a very healthy aspect of the kind of position I'm in at the moment as an actor. So yeah, as much as I can, I love to help out. And yes, Motor Neuron Disease Foundation is very, very close to my heart. I met 3 extraordinary men who were then alive and suffering from various stages of the disease, to observe their behaviour and to try and emulate some of that and absorb some of that into my portrayal of Stephen Hawking. And
well, you were born into a theatrical family. Both your parents were actors. Tell us about your childhood. Were you dragged to rehearsals?
Not at all. No, they wanted me to be anything but an actor. So I was afforded a very privileged education. Well, they knew all the kind of pitfalls of it. It's peripatetic. You don't know where your next paycheck's going to come from, if it's going to be enough. You don't have any control of your social life or, and often your family life. You have to go where the work is. And despite rumours, my mum and dad got me through my education through the work they did as actors. And they worked really hard to achieve that. And they wanted me, from the success that they'd had and the money they put aside from when I was born, to have an education that was funded by them, to do anything other than that, to be a doctor, a lawyer, a teacher, an artist even, but not an actor, because I think they just wanted something better for me. And I kept on doing it, and teachers saw ways of controlling a wayward influence in the classroom by giving him responsibility in lines and being in a community and having to be responsible for directors and actors and people around you, not just showing off on a solo spot in a classroom. And it worked, it worked. I sort of focused that energy, and it's a great thing when you get opportunities like that. And
were you always drawn to it though?
No, I wanted to be a barrister for a while. I did want to fulfill my parents' ambition for a little while. I thought, yeah, you'd have your audience, you'd have to win over judges, your harshest critic, but also, you know, juries, strangers in the audience, and you're selling a narrative, a story. There is an element of performance to it, as well as this wonderful sort of investigative turn and this knowledge of your subject matter, and that appealed to me, that kind of thing of further education. But the acting thing kept on chipping back in. But yeah, very happy with the way it's worked out.
Well, there has been this British invasion of Hollywood,
Yeah, people
hasn't
keep
there?
saying that.
Of course, that's what you're working on. But you also haven't got anywhere with it. If you had, you wouldn't be hiring cryptographers out of university. You need me a lot more than I need you. I like solving problems, Commander. And Enigma is the most difficult problem in the world.
No, Enigma isn't difficult, it's impossible. The Americans, the Russians, the French, the Germans, everyone thinks Enigma is unbreakable.
Good. Let me try, and we'll know for sure, won't we?
You were nominated for an Oscar for your performance in The Imitation Game, where you played Alan Turing. I guess one of those characters that is so intriguing.
Yeah.
He was a mathematician who cracked the Enigma code, helping the Allies beat the Germans during World War II. He was also prosecuted for his homosexuality. I found it to be a rather tragic, sad story.
Well, it's sort of got a lot of elements in it. It definitely ends on that, because I think what you begin with is a film that's quite humorous and uncompromising, and you get this mysterious man who's at the centre of trying to solve this mystery. So it's a thriller in all kind of senses at the beginning, and then as you're cracking the code, you're understanding more and more about who this complex man is. And by the end of the film, when you've hopefully warmed him by understanding him, and he was an exceptional human being, sensitive, caring, brilliant mind, but also a very deeply emotional soul, somebody very engaged with the world around him and the people in that world. But by the end, when you see how he was treated by the government he'd helped save, the very democracy he'd helped save, turning on him and punishing him for his sexuality in such a barbaric way, it's truly heartbreaking. And it is very tragic. And it was an extraordinary privilege to tell that story and bring it to a broader audience. I think people were shocked by how little they knew of this man, whether they knew a little bit about what he contributed to modern computing science as the forefather of it, whether they knew about him as a gay icon, as a man who quietly admitted his nature, to being someone who helped crack the German Enigma code and bring an early conclusion to World War II, which saved millions of lives. So a war hero. I mean, all three of these ingredients, but I think very few people are quite aware of how that was one person who encompassed all of those achievements. So
You did a lot of research for this particular role. You spoke to his family to perfect his speech, his stammer. You wore a dental plate. Tell us the work that goes into becoming these characters.
Right, well, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, there's both good things and bad things about Alan, because there wasn't any literal footage or recorded audio of him speaking or moving, but there was a lot of very literal anecdotal evidence in written form of biographies, and also I was lucky enough to speak to some members of the family and some colleagues that he'd worked with in Manchester to get an idea of some detail. But it's a forensic effort. You have to, especially when you're given the responsibility of bringing a true life character to an audience who may not know anything or little about the man, to try and be as protective of the legacy as well as bring an audience in through the form of a narrative. It's the kind of role, it's the kind of work you look forward to getting as an actor as well. But then when you get it, you realise there's a huge deal of responsibility to actually do a good job of it, I guess.
Well, it was a brilliant performance.
Thanks very much.
Hence you were nominated for an Oscar. Unfortunately, your fellow Brit, Eddie Redmayne, pipped you at the post.
I mean, so well deserved. He was extraordinary as Stephen Hawking. That was an amazing performance and inspiring for all of us. And you know, it was an easy thing to cheer a friend to the finishing line. It really was.
Of course. Was it disappointing at all?
I had absolutely no emotional reaction to it whatsoever, other than being happy for him. I thought I would. I thought I'd be going, oh yeah, try to hide the disappointed face. But I was just, I'm sure someone could rewind that in slow-mo and go, yeah, I can see your heart cracking. But I genuinely sat there with my wife, who I'd married the week before. When you've had that kind of an emotional content in your recent private life, nothing's really going to touch the sides by comparison. I think even if I'd won, there would have been a burst of adrenaline thinking, Christ, what do I say? Am I going to remember everyone's names? But no, I think we really did all win that night, and there are statistically a lot more losers in that room than there are winners. So I was in very good company, and I genuinely really was happy for Eddie.
Well, there has been this British invasion of Hollywood.
Yeah, people keep saying that, but I think of every year, and there's been such a strong content of British performances, but also people who've lived part of their lives in the States and part of their lives in the UK, whether it be, Christian Bale or Danny Day-Lewis. I mean, just extraordinary work of extraordinary actors across the board. And I don't think there's a particular invasion going on at the moment. I don't think it's particularly tied in with any kind of strata of society either. I think there's great work going on at every level.
Does it make you proud, though, to see all the Brits doing so well in Hollywood?
Yeah, but, you can say the same thing about Mexican directors winning for the last 2 years, and that being, the Mexicans are taking over. I mean, it's just great work done by great artists. And while it's great to go, yay, here's one for the Brits or Mexico, it's irrelevant in the scope of the work of those people. I want to work with everyone and in every way. So, yeah, it's not like running for your country. It's not what this is about. It's not about the nationality of sport. It's it's kind of cross-cultural what we do.
Yeah, I guess you look at like Martin Freeman, your co-star in Sherlock, who's on Fargo, or Matthew Good, your dear friend, who's in The Good Wife. You've got Brits playing Americans in American TV series.
Yeah. You've got Maggie Gyllenhaal playing an exceptionally brilliant role in An Honourable Woman, and just flawless British accent. You've got people crossing over all across the board, and I don't. It's the exchange is happening both ways now. And that's great.
We know you're working on a number of films. Tell us what is in store for you coming up.
There's a film coming out sometime this year called Black Mass, which was an extraordinary project to take part of with Johnny Depp, and directed by Scott Cooper, and the wonderful Joel Edgerton as well. And there's a Christmas special, Sherlock, which comes out this Christmas. Very excited about that for the world.
And how's your production company going?
Very well. Yeah, it's great. I mean, we're getting off the ground. It's slowly, as you know, with these things, it takes time, but we're in a good position where we can just take the time to choose the kind of projects we really, really want to do rather than just get rolling, in order to sort of keep things afloat. So it's good. We're in a healthy position. We've got fantastic material coming our way, so watch this space.
Well, Benedict Cumberbatch, nice to meet you.
Lovely to meet you too.
Thanks very much
indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you.